Hi everyone, welcome back to Islam Chats. The first thing we're going to talk about today is fighting attitudes of bias in the United States as a Muslim American. So, what is an attitude? According to Martin and Nakayama, an attitude is attributed as an individual's disposition or mental sets. These dispositions or mental sets can be either negative or positive, rather judgmental or non judgmental. So, what is an attitude of bias towards Muslims in the US? After 9/11, many people formed negative biases against Muslims and judged them with a negative attitude. According to AP News, those who have grown up in the shadow of 9/11 have experienced hostility and surveillance, mistrust and suspicion, questions about their Muslim faith, and doubts over the Americanness. It is important to learn what we can do to change this. A poll by the Associated Press found that 53% of Americans have unfavorable views towards Islam, and yet many of these unfavorable views do not come from personal experience, but rather learned bias spread through hate speech and unconscious biases. It is important to learn how you can change your bias. The first step to changing your bias is admitting you have it. The second step is becoming conscious of your actions and communication of others who are different than you. And become a conscious, competent communicator, meaning being aware of your interactions and understanding why they are good interactions. How will you use your conscious competence? So, being conscious of your communication with others will help you combat others as well as your own unconscious biases in order to create these relationships. Islamophobia creates negative consequences for Muslims in the US. Become an intentional communicator to combat these attitudes and establish better connections and better attitudes. Next, we're going to talk about how to be an ally to Muslims. So, what is an intercultural ally? According to Martin and Nakayama, an intercultural ally refers to bonds between individuals or groups across cultures characterized by a shared recognition of power and the impact of history and orientation of affirmation. Now you're probably wondering how to become an ally. Being an ally goes beyond just being an acquaintance or friend of someone from a different culture. It is being conscious and intentional in your relationship, seeking to understand another culture of a person before they may understand you, and being competent and having the motivation to learn about other cultures. Now for applying this to Muslim culture. An example of people being intentional and accepting of other cultures is accepting their dress codes or attire. In Women in Islam, Murua expresses that Western media should educate people to accept other people's dress codes as part of mutual human respect. Murua is referencing common negative attitudes from non-Muslims about the veiling of Muslim women. To be a positive intercultural ally is to accept different cultures' ways of doing and learn why they do what they do. It's important to be conscious, be intentional, and be open. Intercultural communication with others can form long-lasting relationships and transform yourself into a more empathetic, understanding individual. Put yourself in spaces where you can allow new learning about other cultures. This leads us into our next topic of dealing with conflict in Muslim culture. Did you know that Muslim approaches to conflict resolution are based on social networks, rituals of reconciliation, historical practices of coexistence, and religious values? Well, within the Muslim collectivist culture, maintaining communal and intercultural harmony is crucial. In Muslim culture, a strong emphasis is placed on personal and group identity and taking responsibility for wrongdoings. There is also focus on restorative justice and achieving intercultural harmony. The Muslim culture upholds shared values such as forgiveness, public apology, and recognition of mutual rights and obligations when resolving conflicts. Communal leaders play a significant role in facilitating the reconciliation process. Next, we're going to talk about face-saving strategies. Face-saving strategies are a critical component of Muslim conflict resolution. By using specific communication strategies to save their own or another person's face, Muslims can maintain communal and intercommunal harmony. For our last topic of this video, we're going to learn about the peace-building strategies and practices in Islamic tradition. The book Crescent and Dove, Peace and Conflict Resolution in Islam helps explain the Muslim communities using conflict resolution practices and peace-building strategies. The strategies that they use must acknowledge evidence from the Quran and the essential foundational doctrines, creeds, beliefs, and practices of Islam. The definition of peace in the Islamic tradition goes beyond the absence of conflict. It encompasses metaphysical, spiritual, philosophical, theological, political, legal, and socio-cultural contexts. By considering these four interconnected concepts, we can understand the definition of peace beyond its minimal definition as the absence of conflict. This shift in awareness highlights the need for a complete assessment of Islamic peacebuilding and the fostering of a culture of peace. To conclude, today we learned about fighting bias, being an intercultural ally, how Muslims approach conflict, and what strategies and practices are used for peace in Islamic tradition. Thank you for watching.